Welcome to the Enchantment Hour with Philippa Woodsford and Maxine Brown. We welcome you to our weekly podcast. Each week we will bring you a different topic. It'd be great if you can subscribe and also leave any feedback. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. The links are below for our social media where you can ask questions. Also, I have a website which is mkblifecoach.com. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. Thank you. Introduce myself. So we are now live. So
hello. So for those of you who know me already, there's no introductions needed. But for anybody who's watching on Maxine's channel, my name is Philippa, Philippa Woodsford. I am a medium and a holistic therapist, and I work with psychotherapy and hypnotherapy as well. So a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none, but I've done this for over 20 years. I had my first book published last year on curse daggers, and hoping to have more books published this year that I've written. So over to Maxine.
So I'm Maxine Brown, and I am a life coach and recently qualified as a hypnotherapist. And I've also written a couple of books over the last year. It's 31 Days Life-Changing Journal, which is basically my story, and it's just showing you how you can go through a lot of crap, basically, but come out the other end. And then you've got 31 days how to change your life around. And then I've done a year journal as well. So I just hope you enjoy our conversations that we're going to try and do most weeks, and they're going to be different topics. So you can join in by sending messages, and also if you've got any ideas of topics that you fancy us covering, obviously please let us know, because that will be good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say this on my groups as well, that audience participation is massive. It's something that I always ask for in my groups, and it's just nice to hear other people's perspectives. And obviously today we've decided we're going to talk about grief, because we can come at it from a professional point of view, but also a personal point of view. And I think that was our idea, wasn't it? We wanted people to see it in layman's terms as much as anything else, didn't we? We didn't want to have it so professional and all about what the books say. It was about from a human point of view. And, we all go through grief for different reasons, for relationships ending, for people passing, sometimes for illnesses, all sorts of different reasons. And it's how we cope, how we get through. And, just to touch very quickly on your book, Maxine, I literally bought it, took it away for a few days holiday, and didn't put it down until I'd finished it. I was absolutely enthralled. And there's bits where you have a bit of a chuckle, and there's bits where you're absolutely heartbroken. But then to read how you've come through that and how you've used that experience as a springboard almost to take yourself forward, to help other people. And even just now talking about it makes me feel really emotional. And it was amazing. It was really inspiring. And I think sort of that was one of the reasons why we decided to do this. Obviously, I work as a medium and, work with people who've passed and people who are grieving. And it's nice to know that other people can identify with normal people who've been through similar situations, but everybody deals with it differently.
That's it. And that's what I think people have to understand, that it doesn't, everybody is an individual within grief. And it's not just because of bereavement. It can be obviously bereavement of a pet. It can be a loss of a job, a relationship breakdown and things like that. And everybody grieves differently, and everybody takes different times. So never, ever pitch yourself against somebody else. And when people say to you, haven't you finished grieving yet? It happened, a couple of years ago or a couple of months ago, just ignore them. And that's the thing to do, because you've got to go at your own pace. And I think lots of people seem to be scared of doing that. I don't know if you found that, they think they should have finished grieving, this has happened then, that's happened, and now I should be going back to work or getting back on with a normal life again, but I still feel sad. And it's, you will do. It's not the end of the world if you're not ready yet. You just do it at your own pace. Absolutely. And tell people that as well, I think.
Well, people do say to you, Dom just lost his mum in October, and, ended up, because he'd lost his dad quite soon before that, and we'd only just sort of buried his dad's ashes, and then literally weeks later his mum passed, and he'd been so strong. And then sort of he had a few weeks off, and somebody said to him, so are you over this now? Are you all right now? You're ready to go back to work? And he was like, don't think I'm ever actually going to be over this. I've lost both my parents in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
And then obviously we lost the dog a couple of weeks later. And we weren't surprised at how hard we grieved for the dog because she was part of the family and we adored her. But I think coming in that whole lineup of other things that had happened, and he is still struggling. We're all still struggling. But what we found is we've learned to laugh again. We've learned to talk about the good memories and the positive things. But it's the little things that set you off. And sometimes it's the happy times that set you off, isn't it? Or you think you're okay and you'll hear a song or you'll see something and it sets you off. And I think it's to understand that that's okay. That's human.
Exactly. I mean, it's 12 years ago since I lost Liz. And I mean, I've always been able to talk about her. And yes, I don't get as tearful as like I used to do or anything like that. But it's usually it's little things. And at the moment, obviously, we're getting rid of all we're boxing everything up and everything ready to move. And I found an album which I'd completely forgotten I'd got. And at the back of the album was Lizzie's handwriting from when she was probably about 12-ish.
Wow. Yeah.
She'd done it was clothes that she'd drawn and designed, and it was putting them all these different packages and how much they were and everything together. But it was seeing her handwriting, it just floored me.
That set you off.
Yeah. And it was just, and I thought, and it just brought everything, and I can see her doing it and everything. And I mean, it was nice memories as well, but that really got to me. So it can be just little different triggers, and that's it. And it can just floor you.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's quite a big one, isn't it? I mean, you know what it's like when your children get older. You look back at the school books of when they were tiny, and you think, but then to have gone through that process of losing them and see something like that, I mean, that's one heartstring that's going to be twanged over and over again, isn't it? And especially when you're not expecting it, it's quite massive. Yeah. But I know I've been talking to a few mothers, bizarrely, lately. It seems to be more mothers who find it easier to talk about grief when they've lost a child. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes dads find that harder because they can't access the words. And they kind of have this ball of emotion, but they're not always able to sort of tap into that emotion. They try and do the man thing. And like we've discussed before, people sometimes see grief and pain as a weakness. And that, it drives me insane.
So
because
bad.
Like, oh my God, it is not a weakness. It's a sign that you've loved somebody. The harder you grieve, it's more of a sign of the relationship that you've had and what you should have had that you've lost and that kind of thing. But both of these parents, one had lost a son to a brain tumor, so she knew she was losing him, but it was still a very quick process. I'm not sure whether that's even more painful sometimes because you're aware that this is a process that's happening. As a mom, as you know, when Lizzie was poorly, I know obviously she then got better and passed us something different, but as a mom nursing a child through something that's really quite serious, your job is to make everything all right, isn't it? That's how we view ourselves, our job. And we're not superhuman, we're not God, we can't. No. And she said to me, this wound will always be open. I don't think it will ever close. And I just agreed with her and I said, but don't expect it to. It's not going to. You're going to learn to live with it. You're going to learn to move on. But please don't expect that when we talk about a healing process, that means that wound will close and the pain will go away. Because it doesn't. It's part of you that's being ripped away. And in a way, like I think some people think that if they do close the wound, they're going to forget that person.
Yeah.
So, there's the two elements, isn't it? If I stop grieving, I'll forget them, or they'll think that I've forgotten them.
Yeah.
Don't close that wound. I'm going to be in pain forever.
Yeah. I think you end up having like a new normal. That's the way because your life will never, ever go back to your normal. And you learn to have a new normal, and yet you will always remember them, and that's the thing to remember. To be at the back of your head. You'll never ever forget them, and if you find it easy to talk about and do that, if it makes you feel happy as well. But you can't expect everybody else to to talk about them as much either. But don't feel down about it, because I know a few years ago I kept thinking nobody remembers Liz anymore. I know they all do in their own way. It's just, and that's how I can completely appreciate that now. And also, it hurts some people remembering them.
Yes.
So that's, you've got to think of the other people, how they're grieving as well, because say they're going to be different to how you're grieving about it. So some people can't talk about them because it upsets them.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you just have to do it. It's quite a selfish thing, really, I suppose, because you've got to do what's best for you, but you have to appreciate everybody else around you.
And that's the difficult thing when you're grieving, isn't it? Because you are, and it is all consuming, and every grief is different. Sometimes somebody that you don't think you're that close to, you sometimes feel as if you grieve harder for them than somebody who you were really close to that you think you'd be devastated with. The grief is very, very different. But of course, when you're grieving, it's trying to understand that, yes, other people are grieving as well. They may have had the same physical relationship, like they may have been a child or they may have been a parent, but that doesn't mean that their grief is going to follow the same path as yours. Or one of you might feel it more keenly, one of you might move on a bit more quickly, one of you might never move on. And it's hard, isn't it? Because you have to try and figure out your own grief and understand it. But then you've got to take into consideration everybody else's grieving patterns and kind of go, oh, well, if I'm putting that on them, is that going to tip them over the edge? Or, oh, well, they're doing that differently to me. I don't agree with that. But actually, there's no right or wrong way.
No, that's it. No, it's just taking each step. And I think I struggled with the grief at the very beginning because I bottled everything up. I mean, yes, I did cry an awful lot, but I still didn't. I don't know. I just bottled because I didn't want to upset everybody else around me.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the thing. But I mean, it was only, I think, 2 years after I lost Liz, I lost my grandma. But that was a completely different grief.
Yes.
And it just, and I mean, I thought the world of her, and we were very, very close. I was the first granddaughter, and I used to go and stay with her and things like that. But my grief from her was completely different to Liz. And I think that was probably because she was an older lady. I mean, she was 92 when we lost her, so she'd had an amazing life. And that, like, look at it in a different aspect. But my mum, obviously it was her mum, she was heartbroken.
Yeah.
And so everybody, and that's the way, I think that's the thing for everybody to understand, that whatever's happening is happening for that individual person.
It is, absolutely. I know when I lost my second gran, I lost my first set of grandparents quite young. And I was in my 30s when I lost my gran, and she passed with leukemia. And we only had 6 weeks of knowing that she was poorly before she passed. So it was a very intense time. And I spent a lot of time in the Northeast. And at the time she passed, and me and my sister were totally different. So my sister was like, you need to cry. You need to just cry.
Yeah.
I can't cry. I haven't got any tears. I can't. And I was going, instead of on films, if I try and squeeze a few out, it'll come and I'll open those flood barriers. Nah, jot. But I was more in the role of, right, we need to go shopping. I need a bright pink coat. I'm not going to go to my gran's funeral in black because my gran wouldn't expect it from me. I need a fabulous pair of shoes. We're going to turn up. We're going to do her proud. Yeah. Because my gran, she used to work in the co-op, but she used to work when they had the clothing stores there and things like that. And then she worked in some other places. She was always lovely dressed. Her hair was always lovely. Her house was always immaculate. So in my mind, it was like, right, we need to clean the house from top to bottom. We need to wear fantastic things. I'm not sitting around being miserable. She wouldn't want that. I've got to do it for her. Yeah. Where my sister's grief was very much, I can't think of anything else. I don't care what I wear for the funeral. I don't even want to go to the funeral. I just need to sit and cope because this pain's really overwhelming. Yeah. And I sort of dragged her out a bit, and then she kind of helped me tap into mine a little bit. And then I remember it was pretty much 6 months to the day afterwards, I was hoovering my boys' bedrooms. Now, I'm not a big fan of housework, so it generally upsets me anyway. It's one of them jobs I will leave. And for some reason, that grief came over me then. There was no trigger. There was no picture. There was no word. There was no voice. There was nothing. It was probably the time when I actually had some quiet time, where everybody was out. I had a little bit of headspace, and it was almost like sort of spirit had gone to me, there's a void in your head now, so we're going to put this in now because you need to deal with it. Yeah. And it was 10 years I was up and down, absolutely, devastated. And then my granddad passed a good few years later, and we thought he's the last one. And actually we all viewed it very differently. We viewed it as, well, he was lonely on his own. He was nearly 90. We all missed him. We all talk about him every day. but the grief was totally different, and yet the relationship is just as close.
Yeah, that's it.
For no
It's just
rhyme or reason.
Yeah, no, it's everything different, and the same with when people that don't have pets, and when you lose a pet, as you obviously have done recently, and I have done in the past and everything. I mean, it's devastating because to me, my pet is part of my family.
Absolutely.
And so, but people that haven't got pets, they don't understand that bond, and I mean, to me, exactly. But it's not. It is, and 9 times out of 10 you have a dog for an awful long time as well.
Yeah.
And so, they are, and that's that main thing of that family. And to lose those, I think, is sometimes can be just as bad as losing a friend or another, a relative or something like that, because it's a void from your household. And I don't think people understand how to grieve for a pet as much, because it's not meant to be happening as such. Really, people think, look, you've lost your dog, go and get another one, because that's you can do.
Everybody said that to me. Yep.
But you can't, because that dog or that pet is an individual to your house, and they've got their own little mannerisms, and they do their little funny things and everything. And I think people should appreciate other people that are having a tough time.
Yeah. And I think, like you've just said there, grief is grief. It doesn't matter whether it's for a relationship that you've lost. Sometimes people grieve very harshly over losing a job, because it was a career. It was something that they were settled in, that was security, and that is ripped away from them. And it can put people into a really deep depression, because they don't know any other way. They haven't expected it. It's not just about losing people as in people not walking this earth anymore. They are any loss, isn't it? It's any loss. And as you say, with a pet, I mean, I grieved really hard over my guinea pig when he passed away a couple of years ago, because we spoke to him every day, we played with him every day. And as you say, they've got their own quirks and their own personalities, and it's company, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's company, and people forget that.
Yeah, I think where you've just picked up with the job, I mean, it can be devastating for some people, because they live for their job, and they get up a set time every single day. They go into the job, and they see their friends, and a lot of people will only have those people they go and see at work, so obviously if they do happen to be made redundant, or they lose a job for any other reason, that is then completely cut off from them. So they are by themselves. They've lost their routine, and they just don't know how to get from there, to the next stage. And that can be absolutely devastating for somebody.
Yeah, some people don't then know how to start again, do they?
No, that's it.
Some people, change comes very easily, and they just pick up, and you hear this as one door closes, another door opens, and some people are very open-minded to that. But for some people, they don't know how to start that process of starting again, and it's massive, and it can ruin families, can't it? It can absolutely cause devastation.
Definitely. And I think personally, which I learned from this, is one of the main things really to do is to talk. And if you don't, you bottle it up inside you, and it definitely makes things worse. And I think it doesn't matter who you talk to, but find somebody that will sit and listen to you, because sometimes you don't want the answers back. You just want to splurt it all out and get it out of your mouth. Because when you're talking about things, it'll click and think, I could do it this way, or I can do that, or I can go there, and things like that. You don't always need the answer back.
No.
But you do need somebody just to listen.
Yeah. And that's a bit like the humanistic approach with counselling, isn't it? Where as opposed to psychotherapy, where you're sort of given, well, have a look at this option and have a look at that and think about this. With the humanistic approach, I mean, when I did my training in that, I thought the woman, she did my head in. She was she just swung her head from one side to the other. And how do you feel about that? And I just didn't get that at the time. But actually, doing the job that I do, I understand it a lot more, because people don't always want you. If you go to a friend, talk to a friend, your friend wants to make you feel better. Or your family member wants to make you feel better. So they go, well, let's change the subject, or well, let's talk about this. Or I mean, the other day I sent a message to one of my friends and said, I'm really struggling today. Because my mother-in-law wasn't just my mother-in-law, she was my friend, and I cared for her. And all of a sudden my days are quite vacant. I didn't realise how much time I spent there. And she just sort of sent me one back and said, have a lovely day. Now I was a bit gutted, because I was like, I needed to talk. But from her point of view, she probably thought, oh, bless her. Well, hopefully she'll have a nice day and she'll be all right, because she didn't know what I needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell her what I needed either. So I came off going, well, I didn't get my needs met there, but I hadn't said what they were, and I hadn't said why she hadn't met them. And I know with that friend in particular, had I said to her, actually, I just need somebody to listen, or I could do with a bit of a hug, she absolutely 100% would have been there. And I think that's the thing sometimes when you talk to a counsellor, or, I mean, a lady was talking to me in the doctors the other day telling me that she'd lost her son, bless her. He'd gone out for a night out and somebody punched him and he'd fallen and hit his head and it had killed him outright. And this lady was absolutely devastated, didn't know me from Adam, just needed somebody to listen.
I had exactly the same today in the park.
Yeah. You know, I didn't know him, I didn't know her, I had no information to give her, I had no guidance for her, but she felt so much better. And when she left, she just said, thank you so much for listening. And I thought, because I'm a talker, I'm the worst person in the world, my mouth runs away. But you do sometimes need that, don't you? You just need, because you come up with the answers yourself when you're talking. You don't always need somebody else to point them out.
No, because as long as there's somebody that's listening to you, and it'll come to you eventually, or they'll nod and yes in the right places, and not where, as you say, a friend will try and make you feel better straight away, or they'll give you how they'll act and say what they think you need to hear.
Yeah. Or what they think they would like to hear.
Yes. And they think they know you so well. So, well, you used to be able to do that, so do that now. Because that's how you used to do things, but it probably isn't that way anymore. So if you've got somebody just listening to you and say the odd one, or have you tried this, or what would that mean to you, and things like that, it'll come and you'll eventually get there. But people should never ever feel guilty for having to go and talk to somebody. And I think, and don't be embarrassed about having to go, because I think that's we've got a stigma in the UK about going and finding help or going and chatting to people. Because you think you're being weak, and it's not a weakness.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the thing to remember.
And I think this comes back to what I said before about men. I think with women, we are more used to talking, and we do tend to have better networks. We will go to family members, we will go to friends, we will open up a little bit more. And I feel, not all men, we're all different, but there's still a bit of a stigma with mental health around men and boys more so than there is women, and that drives me insane, because we all hurt, we all need to talk, we all need to listen. And like you and I were talking about when we sort of had our coffee and we were chatting about this whole weakness thing. I can't cry, I'm showing I'm weak. I can't tell somebody I'm struggling, I'm showing I'm weak. If I don't appear to be strong all of the time in front of other people, and people will comment on it. People do say, oh, come on, best foot forward, or they'll make comments, straighten your shoulders. Tits and teeth was one that I used to get a lot when I was younger. Come on, tits and teeth, pretend it's not happening.
That's it.
And actually, one good one that my sister said to me when Dom was really poorly last year, and the year before, and his carotid artery burst, and I sort of burst into tears. And what she said to me was actually probably what I needed to hear. She said, we can go to pieces later, but you need to be strong right now. So she said, let's get the job done. And when he's at hospital and he's all right, we will go to pieces together then. And I thought that was really nice, because everybody else was like, you've got to be strong, you've got to do this, you've got to drive him to the hospital. Yeah. And actually, she wasn't saying to me, you need to man up and get on with it. She was saying, at this particular moment in time, you have to do this because this will save his life. Yeah. But then I'm here for you when you need to go to pieces later, and we'll do it together. We'll go through it together. We'll pick them back up again. And she was, and that was phenomenal. She's amazing like that. And my sister just seems to know, but a lot of people, we don't.
No, and I said, and especially with men, I think they do struggle being really open and chatting, because I think they think it's a weakness, and it's not, that they're not being macho and everything. And I think a lot of the time, especially if they're in a relationship or something like that, where they think they should be the strong ones for the rest of the family, and so they try and put everything onto their shoulders, and that doesn't do them any good then, because they're bottling everything up, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then I think you get to a stage when, because everybody else is coming out the other side, and you're just getting deeper and deeper because you've never spoken about anything.
Yeah.
And it can lead then to depression and real unhappiness and everything.
Yeah.
And so I think people need to start being more open and just let the guard down, because it's not a sign of weakness at all. If anything, to me, I think somebody is so much stronger if they can open up and say how they feel.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
I mean, that to me takes much more guts than just to keep everything bottled up. I'd rather somebody be open and say, look, I feel absolutely crap and this is why.
Yeah.
And just blurt everything out, because you think, well done, you've got it off your chest. You can put a plan together on how things you can change, and or we can change something can be changed to help you and things like that, instead of bottling everything up and just getting worse and worse and more sad.
Because as you say, that then manifests physically, doesn't it?
Yes,
and you keep that pain inside and you think it's all emotional, but then you'll start suffering with maybe migraine headaches, or you go down the depression route, which we all know is very physical. Everybody thinks that depression is, snap out of it, think happy thoughts. And it's really not that at all. No. Depression is so physical, and you don't always realize you're in it until somebody points it out, or until you come out the other side. Yeah. But, I treat clients all the time, sort of holistically and with my healing and things, where, I had a chap that I did a reading for yesterday. The problem that he'd come for the reading for wasn't actually the problem that was causing his behaviour actions. Yeah. So we did the reading, and then we just sat and we just chatted, and I did a little bit of digging, as you do when you're a psychotherapist. I was like, let's just ask a couple of questions here, and let him sort of say what he feels. And there was a couple of things, and he was like, well, yeah. But he hadn't put the two situations together. He hadn't put the grief from one situation with the situation that was happening now, and his reaction to that. He hadn't taken from the fact that he hadn't healed from the first one. So, and this is kind of what I chat about in my book, Curse Daggers. It's all about sometimes, you feel you've got this dagger going in, and it hurts and it opens these wounds. And what you haven't realized is what's happened's been really minute. It's the fact that there's been a hidden dagger there already, or a hidden wound there already that you've maybe forgotten about, covered over, pretended didn't exist. And it's the same with grief, isn't it? It opens up things that we weren't aware of, or that we've buried. So talking is the best thing.
It definitely is.
Even self-talk, talking to yourself, keeping like you said, you've done this journal, and that is so important. And I did that for Dom when his dad passed. I got him a journal, and I wrote, I think it was about 200 pages in it. And every day I wrote him like a little quote. It's okay to feel sad today. It's okay to feel happy today. It's okay to remember, and put all of these things in, and then pick little like Buddha quotes and things. And that you don't have to talk to a person if you're not comfortable. No. You can talk to yourself, you can write it down, you can do it in exercise. It's getting it out, isn't it?
That's why I write my journal and say every day. And it's getting all the positive and negative out of my head, because it makes you feel so much better if it's not eating away. Because if you haven't got something, if you keep having it in your head, it will eat away, and it always seems to feel worse. Yeah, and it can be something really, really minor, but when it's in your head, it's getting bigger and bigger. The world's going to feel it's awful. Yeah. But if I write it all down, then I go back and read it and think, why was I feeling like that? Because it's not the end of the world.
And I think sometimes, like we've just said, sometimes that little thing grows and grows and grows and becomes bigger and bigger. And then when we look back on it, or we read back, or we speak to somebody else or whatever, and you then put it into perspective, and you think, actually, I've blown that out of perspective. But then the good thing to do is to look for, well, there must be a reason why I've blown it out of perspective. Yes. What else has this situation triggered? What has this kind of brought up? Yeah. And I do find griefs like that as well. I think sometimes with grief, people, they're grieving because of things they didn't say, or things they felt they should have said.
Yes.
And they don't realise that until after. And then it's that loss of, well, I'll never get the time to do that now. And it's all these little daggers, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And you say people feel guilty that they haven't said something to that person. And that's why, say as much as you can, obviously, to everybody every day. Yeah. But also, go and have a chat with them anyway, because it doesn't stop you doing that. Yes, they've passed and everything like that. But I still talk to Liz when I take some flowers and everything, or something's happening. I still tell her what's happening, and you can do that. And people will think, oh, that's a bit strange, but it's only strange to other people, not strange to you, because that's how you want to do it. Yeah.
You see, I love that. I love it when and I've had a few clients over the last couple of weeks, and they go, "This is going to sound really weird, or you're going to think I'm crazy when I say this." And I go, "I totally did. People for a living. Seriously, if there's a crazy person in the room, it's not you. Do you know what I mean?" There's not a lot you can tell me, and they go, "Oh God, yeah." And then they'll say things like that. I thought I heard their voice, and I had a conversation with them. I felt like I felt them close to me, and you think, whether you have or whether you haven't, the thought that you've done that or you've been able to have that conversation is just as healing, isn't it? Because energy never dies, regardless of your beliefs. I know not everybody believes in spirit live on, and people have different religions and different beliefs, and some people believe that once you're dead, and that's it. And I think that's hard. My dad in particular, he's been through a near-death experience on more than one occasion. And one of them was before Christmas. And he was very upset thinking that he might pass. And I think part of that was because my dad doesn't have a great deal of, or he's not necessarily aware of what he does believe happens afterwards, because he hasn't had enough evidence. And my dad's a very logical, very practical, very sort of thoughtful person, really. And you have to look at that side as well, don't you? It's what your belief system is, and then finding something that makes you feel comfortable. It's not about agreeing with somebody else or following somebody else's pattern, or going to a church or a synagogue or a mosque or anything like that. It's finding what you feel comfort in and find comfort in, isn't it?
Definitely. And it doesn't matter about anybody else, how they do it, as long as you are happy at the way you are dealing with everything. And as I said earlier, it's selfish, but sometimes you have to be selfish. And if it's helping your mind and helping you get through to the next stage of your life, then you do it. You've got to take that time. And I think that's the main thing. Don't worry if you're being selfish, because it's so damned important. It really is.
You see, I don't see it as being selfish. I see it as, and I know what you're saying, because people do, don't they? I'm putting myself first, and that's selfish. But actually, that's essential self-care, and it is absolutely essential. If you're broken and you're in 100 pieces, how can you be something to somebody else? How can you function as a person? So, it is really important. I know before Christmas, Dom and I, we didn't realise we were in a bubble, and I was laughing with you and I saw you and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've sort of been in this room somewhere, and all of a sudden somebody's let me out. And I think in order to deal with the death and the paperwork and the will and clearing the flat and the family and the different ways, because we've all grieved very, very differently. George had barely shed a tear at all. Jack had a couple of tears at the funeral and never mentioned anything until a couple of days ago, when he suddenly started to let a little bit out, and Dom's normally the strong one, pushes everything away. He's actually found he had weeks and weeks where he was in tears every day. But he was allowing himself to grieve, and it's realizing that we all do it in different ways at different times, and sort of take it forward from there. And I feel that time to put yourself in a bubble sometimes, whether you're focusing on your job or whether you're focusing on just breathing, sometimes, whatever your bubble is, you need to do that to piece yourself back together in a way that you can then go back into life, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing with grief, it's like a roller coaster. So you start at the bottom, and then you can go up, and you can be as high as a kite and as happy as within probably a day or even weeks and things like that. But then you can take a bit dip down again, and don't beat yourself up if you're going back down on that roller coaster, because that's just life. And sometimes, but I mean, that happens every walk away of life, because it's like up and downs. But grief particularly seems to go up and down for quite a while. And eventually you'll be at that top, and you'll stay at the top and think, and then also as we were saying earlier, a trigger. I mean, it's like 12 years, and I saw a picture, a letter, and it finished me off.
And that's exactly it. Sorry, I was just looking because I thought somebody had come up with something there, and then I thought it was on the page, but I think it's just, I have. She's put, how do I join? So mine mustn't be, it mustn't be streaming on my page. And yeah, I'd link them all up. So hopefully it is on yours. But as we said, we'll be taking this off and posting it anyway, won't we? And doing it as a podcast.
Yeah, I was saying, if you're going to a podcast.
You know, this is all kind of very new for me. So
that's it. We'll put it over onto a podcast and we'll get that out by the end of the week as well. So it'll be fine. And then we'll just check next time to see if we can get them all onto the streams. But it's streaming, definitely streaming on YouTube and my page too. We can share this stream onto your page anyway afterwards, so that people can catch up.
And if anybody's got any questions or any comments to make, we can get back afterwards, can't we? You know, I mean, I've got a little bit of time today. I can have a little bit of a chat with people sort of via the message or whatever, or next time we come on, we can revisit questions and things from this week, can't we? That's
definitely. Because people can put questions onto the replay of this, as you say, and we can come back to anybody just to have a chat with them and everything. So that if they need to have a chat, which is no problems whatsoever.
And I think from a professional point of view as well, you know, just to point out that both of us are trained in various types of counselling and working through grief as well. So, you know, if anybody from a professional level wants to reach out either to one of us, or if they want us to put them, you know, in the right direction of where they can get help, then we're both more than happy to do that, because that's the other thing as well. It's sometimes people don't know where to find help or how to sort of go about that. And there's still a bit of a stigma. I mean, I go and see a counsellor every couple of years. I go and see her and I have 4 or 5 sessions with her, and she'll say, so what we're going to talk about this time, Philippa? Just life, really. I've just come to check in. And for me, because I do this as a job and I work with people with my mediumship and things, I'm very aware that you need to keep on top of your mental health. And actually, when you're feeling good, it's still good to talk about things and bring things up. You don't have to wait until you're in the pits of despair, do you?
No, that's the worst thing to do. It's just keep chatting. As you, I mean, yes, you said you've got. I have a life coach, and I speak to not loads and loads now, but I still do. And then I just blurt everything out. And especially when you've got lots going on, sometimes it's just nice just to get it all off your chest. And they'll just sit there and be, okay.
Nod and drink that coffee and let you get it out of your system, and then go, do you feel better now? Yeah. But as you say, you know, even when you're up and everything's fantastic, it's still good to talk about everything, because sometimes, like my counsellor, I'll talk about things, she'll go, whoa, back your truck up there, P, back your truck up. And I'm like, what? And she'll say, let's just go back a couple of sentences to where you mentioned this. And I go, why? And she'll say, because you've just completely glossed over that, and I actually think there's a little bit of work that needs doing on that. And I'm like, really? And there always is. She's never wrong. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely phenomenal. She's never wrong. But she'll say, you know, you focus on the little things that set you off. The big things you kind of feel like you deal with, so you don't feel like you need to be talking about them. But actually, it's the little things we need to be aware of, isn't it? They're the tricky little suckers that pull you down.
That's it. The little things can build. They just build up and build up and build up, and then they just go, ugh. And as you say, the big things, you think, you think they're the major things, but they're not really, because you can usually get rid of those and get them out the way, because they're so big and you can see those. You don't notice all the little things that are creeping together, and they build up, and they are definitely the worst things. Definitely. Yeah.
It's like walking through a forest, isn't it? You come across a big tree, you know the big tree's there, you find a way around it. It doesn't go away, but you put it behind you and you move forward.
Yeah.
But all these little things that might come up from the ground, and, you know, brambles and stuff like that, and wrap you around the ankle or grab a hold of your coat and pull you back when you're not expecting it, because you weren't aware they were there or that they were attached. They're generally the ones that get you, aren't they? And then once you're down, everything just seems to go, boom, let's all pile on.
So obviously we're getting to wrap it up now. What would you say probably are the most important things for people to do when they're struggling with the grief? I think
I'm a big believer in being authentic with yourself. And I think sometimes acknowledging when there's pain and acknowledging that you're struggling, and also taking away this whole, you know, people will go, oh, you're going to think I'm daft. Oh, you're going to think I'm stupid. Oh, this is ridiculous. But No, if you need to say it and you're feeling that, then it's not stupid and it's not ridiculous. And I don't think that you're crazy. It's something that's obviously causing a lot of hassle and a lot of stress and sort of adding to the grief. And I do feel that acknowledging your feelings yourself is probably the biggest thing that people don't do. You know, and in learning how to identify with them, because sometimes we know we're having these big feelings, but we don't know how to verbalize them. We don't know how to sort of get in there and go, my bin's full, I need to take the lid off. Oh, where's the lid? It's recognizing that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things is just be brave and go and ask for help. When you don't think you need it, or when you think, no, I'm doing fine and everything, but you know deep down you're really not. It's putting all the stigma away from everything and just be brave, and you will be amazed at how different you feel once you've gone and spoken to somebody and got it off your chest, because at the end of the day, it'll be you that puts everything right.
Absolutely.
You just need that little bit of a nudge in the right direction. And don't ever feel guilty for still grieving for somebody or something, because that's life. And it definitely gets easier. And I think it gets easier for everybody as time goes by. But each person's time is different.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And as you said earlier, it's finding your way forward to carry that pain with you, where it doesn't feel like you're dragging a big backpack full of boulders anymore. It's more a case of tucking them under your arm and going, come on,
come in with me.
Yeah, that's what's nice about talking about people and still having photographs around about them. You know, people think, oh, I need to put those photographs away, I need to stop looking. Some people clear people's things out and they keep nothing of them. And then other people almost keep a shrine, and there's no right or wrong with that. It's just try not to make knee-jerk reactions, try not to get rid of everything straight away, maybe put it out of sight or give it to somebody else, but make sure that if you feel you might need to go back to it later, you can do. Allowing yourself to have that little bit time, but not wallowing in it as well. I think there's a big difference between allowing yourself time and space and getting so consumed about it that you forget that actually you're still living, and you're not doing them any favors by you throwing your life away or not living your life to the full, because actually what we need to do is almost live for them and carry them with us. That's how people live on, isn't it? Because we carry them with us.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things on the day I lost Liz is yes, I lost her, but I haven't lost myself. And I think it's cruel to all your friends and family around you for you to, because you haven't died, you've got to carry on living. And as you say, you let them carry on living through you, and you do.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. But it's finding that way of getting through the mire, getting through that foggy bog, isn't it? You know, finding your way to deal with your pain and put one foot forward. And we're all different with how we do that, when we do that, and just knowing that that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. That's my thing. It's okay to be okay. Because I don't want people to feel guilty for when they're having a good day. Don't feel guilty, but it's also okay not to feel okay sometimes. But it's just feel how you need to feel at the time.
And that's the one thing we didn't really touch on today. It's absolutely okay not to be in the pits of despair every day. To laugh, to joke, to carry on and live your life, to remember them. And the other thing that I find, you know, people always say, don't speak ill of the dead. Well, do you know, if they were a bit of a so-and-so, you know, my mother-in-law could be a right grumpy so-and-so at times. And we laugh about that now, but remembering them as they were. You don't have to wear the rose-tinted glasses all the time. You don't have to pretend you had feelings you didn't, or that things didn't annoy you when they did. It's keeping the perspective and keeping it real.
That's it. That's completely it. You talked about them, and as you would do when they were alive, you're probably a bit more honest, in fact, when they died, because you can say they were a miserable so-and-so, or they did say. I know we had the one grandma, we think, but we haven't people about them. You've just got to carry on having a chat about them, keep them alive that way, because I think it helps everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Oh, it's been so lovely having this chat with you this morning, Maxine, and hopefully I'll get it on my things as well if it hasn't streamed on there already. But as I say, you know me, technophobic.
We'll get there.
You're much better at this than I am.
We're getting there. No, it will, and we'll get it. As I say, we can share this once it's downloaded, and then we'll get it onto the podcast as well. But it's been a really good chat.
Yeah, it's been lovely, and we just wish everybody the best of luck and lots of love. And if anybody is struggling, reach out to somebody, find somebody, even if it's a complete stranger. Speak to your doctor. You can self-refer for counselling and things. You don't have to have a doctor's appointment for that. The Samaritans are always there. There's professionals, there's us. There is a big network there, and people aren't always aware of that network or how to tap into it. And sometimes you just need to ask the right questions. So just encouraging people, whoever you are and whatever's happened and however long ago it was or how recent, just get the help that you need if you feel you need it. Definitely.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.
Yeah, take care. Lovely to see you, Maxine. We'll see you